Hey y'all, it's Madeline to come at you with some Omega energy. I had a thought. It's a weekend day. I'm in casual clothes. No judgments. I had a thought. With all the layers of everything that's going on right now, and I know a lot of stuff is challenging. Challenging to the spirit mostly and the mental. We all can see there's a lot of things going down right now that can potentially be hazardous to humans in a large scale, but we can sit here and just constantly worry about that. Or some of us might have some kind of way to figure out how to fix any of it. Who knows? But because you don't know and you're not sure, there's two reasons why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. One, you don't know. So, on the off chance that everything turns out to be A-okay, we figure ourselves on out and everything's fine, then you can possibly leave something as a record of yourself for generations to come. Two, if on off chance things are not okay and for a while and we have to refigure ourselves out, there's still, it is in my mind, in my consciousness, at least in my hope, that human beings will enough of us will figure things out and right ourselves one day. But it is not an understatement when people say we're living in unprecedented times. Being that as it may, when we look at our current history books, now we already know we don't want to hear no argument. And I know I don't want to hear no arguments about what's inaccurate and what's accurate, but there are actual stories within our history books, in our textbooks, in our biographies and autobiographies that are actual, factual, true stories. And some of the things we've learned a lot of lessons from. I know I've read or listened to Jung, for example, over and over again to try to understand this person because I want to understand his philosophies and I want to know him as a person because of his philosophies resonated so closer to, in my mind, the idea of a true philosopher or a true scientist even, because he had all that. I think it's the range that made me resonate with him as a person. Carl Jung, if you're not certain of who I'm talking about. Part of what I do here is ego gift to myself. And I say ego gift, I can talk, I can write, I can do whatever I want to do in this framework, as well as on other platforms. Like right now, I'm taking a break from other platforms because I need that break for myself. It's like it's just the energy. Anyway, but no matter how I do that, this is an imprint of me that I leave for my children and anybody else's children who wants to know what the people were like at this time. Now, I'm gonna be honest, not everybody like me, but there's enough of them, I think, that are similar that they can gather information, more and more information about us as we are, the truth of us. I think some of the reason why a lot of our history books do have those inaccuracies that I just spoke on earlier is because there's not enough of a record that is unquestionable, that is left behind to speak to the accuracy of those times and those people and those actions. Maybe we can use a lot of our ingenuity in our free spaces right now, like this, to chronologically detail ourselves in some way. Not for any purpose of selling it necessarily. I mean, teach his own on that. That's just not my choice. But just to have an accurate record from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And if nothing else happens with that information other than it gives a snapshot of a human being, then cool. No matter what your thoughts, ideas, here's the thing that I think would be the most valuable if you choose to do it. Be honest. Be your fullest version of yourself. Be honest. no matter what that looks like. And you might say, well, that's easy for you to say. No, you're looking right now at a person who's done a hell of a lot of shadow work. And we talked about shadow work before. You know what shadow work is. It's you go through the ups and downs of your emotions and your woundings and your trauma, and you express those things and you feel those feelings, and you go through and dig out all those wounds and process them over and over again until they no longer can be used against you and by others or your own self. And with that, just on some aside, if you're triggered, if you can be triggered by others, that's because there are still wounds, whether it be from childhood or adulthood, that are still within you that you have yet to fully process and release and heal. So it can still trigger you. Okay? And these are weapons. These are weapons that are formed against you, whether you realize it or not. And so this is one of those things that I've done for quite some time, over and off and on, until I got to a space where I'm like, I ain't comfortable enough with where I am. Not everybody ain't gonna do that, but I got to a space where I'm comfortable enough with where I am. There's no person that can decide for me how I'm going to behave anymore. Like, they can't do something or say something to me to make me jump out of my natural state of character or get into my ego or get into my defense mode unless I choose to do that. Only time you'll get me in that space at this particular time, because of all that shadow work, is when there's an actual threat, not a perceived one. There's a difference, kids. Now, I'm saying this to you because that's what I chose to believe. Between that and let people know that magic is all around us. Everything is not as it seems. There are those of us who actually do still care and have some kind of ingenuity of the mind to be able to, in some way, continue to try to change things, to balance it out for everyone. That's what I've left over there. And that's what I leave here, right? And my goal in doing that is exactly what I've said. If you do nothing else other than just talk about your own life, be your own biographer, talk about your life, leave something for the kids, leave something that is as valuable as a Nobel Prize, because right now we are our own history books, and we can be that. And the more you talk and the more you write, the more likely it is there's going to be some people in your bloodline that's going to see themselves or understand themselves a little bit better. At least that's what I think. You ain't got to think that, but I think that. And even in this space, when I started to recently talk more and more about my personal stories, at first I thought it was going to be no big deal because writing it wasn't no big deal. But my folks, we talked about my folks. Told me, yeah, it's going to be a big deal talking. Because you're going to feel it when you talk something out as opposed to write something out. Something else happens. I can't describe it. And it helped me see where I still not had woundings, but still had feeling. So in that aspect, you can also help yourself, but also help somebody else figure out some things for themselves, possibly through you modeling that behavior. At least that's what I suspect. That's why I continue. One of the many reasons why I continue. Because I'm going to tell y'all right now, y'all, some of the things that are about to go down for the collective are not things that I want to participate in. So when I say I want to participate in it, it's like I said, I didn't know how long I was going to have to write or have to talk or have to ask to just shake them and listen. But certain aspects and certain things that were so surprising to me that's happened over the last, I would say 2-3 weeks, that let me know that were good signs to me, good things that happened with and for me, that I was like, well, maybe this is the signs that I don't have to work so hard. And I mean, I have done a perfect job, but I did a good job, I think. Good enough. Trying my hardest is good enough for me. So it must be good enough, generally speaking. And I can just chill, but mostly continue to speak on the things that I think are important. For example, today I learned that one of the things that I actually put a personal stake in and worked very, very hard for student loan debt relief, which is hopefully going to be something that is not not a thing that people will conceive of. It's something that should be even an argument. That was overturned. And I looked at them like, that's one of many things that have been either returned or picked with that were things that I put personal stock into. And I'm like, every single victory is still a victory, but it feels some type of way. And the type of way it feels is, and I told y'all before, the collective energy decides a lot of things. And it also educates me on where the vibe is, or whether or not I should even bother with certain things, you know? So where I am right now is Godzilla himself can come out of the Mississippi and start tearing this country up, and I'm gonna sit down and be like, okay, do we still have Wi-Fi? Can I still watch my sci-fi shows? Can I get a cold margarita? Can I get my favorite num-nums to eat while I watch my sci-fi shows with a margarita or a good scotch? And while everybody's running and screaming, that's the vibe I'm on right now. It's like, bruh, I'm gonna be an observer without even observing it. Like, is that some level of transcendence? I don't even know, because I'm not trying, y'all. It's like, one of the philosophers, or many of the philosophers I listen to, like, you need to eventually get to a space where you can observe without interacting with your environment. That's some upper level transcendence. And I'm just like, have you lived down here, sir, ma'ams? All of you enlightened people think you're just supposed to observe things and just let it be. But I'm coming to closer and closer to that philosophy. Just observe it and let it be. Because at this particular point, F the vibe, I'm just one person. F the vibe is such a place where you are understanding the people who aren't. It's hard to classify it without it sounding like I'm insulting somebody. So I'm trying real hard, not because I'm trying to be likable. I never cared about that. Well, there are moments where I do, excuse me, y'all. There are moments where I have, and I've never felt like myself when doing that. So I'm just not going to do that right now. Oh, by the way, I finally got my nails done and I look like somebody's child. See, I was just ragging it for a while. Not that I really care, but that is what it absolutely is. But I feel better whenever I have myself all cleaned up in print. Anyway. But I'm coming closer to that reality because it's easily seen those who actually do want fairness across the board and have some semblance of understanding what that can look like without being biased or toxic to themselves and other people, and those who do not. It is very clear. If I further speak, say for instance, as I was speaking on Facebook, as well as doing my shadow work, so people can see these are moments in which I'm having real conflict within or conflict with others, whether y'all know who those others are or not. And I'm literally working through it emotionally in a real way. How I feel, genuinely. The anger, the disrespect, the hurt feelings, and then how I feel later as I process those feelings and come to a head. All those things. I did that for a while. Like I keep telling you, I'm doing my shadow work. It doesn't look like a streamlined thing, but nor should it. Now, as a therapist, it'd be like, these are the steps you do, and this is this type of philosophy, and that type of philosophy, this is this, and this is Adlerian, this is person-centered, this is this. Bruh, I understand that. But real life is real life. And in real life, people cuss. In real life, people go up and down, change their mind, get confused. And I wanted to show that to as many people as wanted to see it, while showing them my love for astrology, the stars, and things esoteric, because that's been hidden for most of the populace. In my life, that's not a thing that I could just share, that part of myself that I could just share and talk to people about openly, not because they couldn't conceive of it. It's just not a thing before this time frame that I could actually do on a regular basis. But I tell you what, I can do it now, but there are still some caveats to that. But that's not what this conversation is about. To continue to do that at this time would be like going in a room full of toys and bringing another toy. Or just, I guess it would be redundant, is the best way to say that without using metaphor. It'd be redundant. Because those who have figured out, even if they don't do specific shadow work, or they go to therapist or a competent one, because not all of them are competent, I tell you that right now. I saw firsthand some people graduate with me that should never have been left to stay in school, let alone graduate. But that's not a story for today. But you can find a competent therapist, someone who actually is not cynical and not jaded from the system, because that can happen too. A very competent therapist who actually started out really giving a damn, get completely jaded by the system, and now they just sit there and write notes and just, what do you think? Not one of them. I'm talking about a real therapist, someone who is good at that, great at that job. You find somebody like that, and you go into them, that's just as good as doing shadow work with someone who's a spiritual guide. Excuse my baby. Sometimes she balks when she wants my attention. She thinks I'm on the phone. Just like my kids used to. It's weird. But the reason why I'm saying this to you is that I'm talking about me and my story in a way that is not hurtful to me for the first time. Because even when I would write about my story in different points, I'd feel regret or some kind of shame, because first of all, a lot of my story is just my personal story. As truthful as it is, seems fantastical to some, and then I perceive that someone reading what I write might look at it as, this is made up, or this is fiction, or she's crazy, that didn't really happen. But as I've had that experience, those types of experiences in my life, when I've told somebody, hey, this is what happened to me, if they ask me, this is not something, I'm not a trauma dumper, because people get to know me for years and years and years and don't know half the stuff that I've been sharing with y'all right now. It's just those preconceived notions is because it's born out of the experiences I've had. I've gotten to, by the time I was 20, I got to a place of realizing that most people don't care about what really happened to you, or if something did happen to you, even if they say they care, they don't really care. Okay? And I learned that more often than not, that's the case when it comes to the average human being. They don't even have to be a bad person. That's what made it sad. But I don't say this because I don't say the things that I say on here so someone can feel bad for me. That would be like the worst case scenario for me personally. For me, I'm a badass. Even at the hardest moments in my life, that's when I was the most badass, because I didn't give up. Never going to. I say these things so that my children, my clients, my students, or anybody who chooses to view me can see this as a testament to the human condition and the human spirit, but also realize that maybe, just maybe, if I reach in here, I can find something more inside of here too. If I really do need it, Because I'll be the first one to tell you I ain't got nothing that y'all don't have. Now, I will, now, some of these things is not stuff you want. I'm going to tell you right now. I told y'all. Some of the things that I had, some people call gifts. I never call them gifts. And to this day, I will tell you there are days, and some days there are just moments in which I'm just like, no, it's not. I'm not. Let somebody else have it. There are times like that. Many, many times. Okay? But I am human, which means that any human being out there can access that part of themselves if they go through the steps to choose to try to access those parts of themselves. But again, I will caution you against it. I will. I don't know what nobody else say, but I will. Maybe I'm not handling it as well as them. But I will encourage you to strengthen parts that you are comfortable with so that you can serve yourself and those around you the best way you can. That part. If you want to, if any of my clients, students will ever tell you if they ever try to strengthen those aspects of themselves, I'm going to definitely walk with you. I'm not going to push you, but I'm going to walk with you while you do that and help you in any way I know how. But today was an example for me of how important it is. I guess instead of being disappointed by the student loan thing, I looked at it as another sign of what's to come. And you might think that's something small. Having a non-linear time brain and my personal thoughts processes tells me certain things. Like the death of Tina Turner. I knew about that 2.5 years ago. And when I knew about that 2.5 years ago, it wasn't because, it was some sudden shock. She lived a long life. And she taught us all a lot, and we got some beautiful music from her. But it was on a timeline of events between that and some of the things that's happened in the public zeitgeist and the news that I wrote about, both in cold and straight. And then I wish right now, the thing I'm telling you right now, I wish I had been able to tell it to myself, because I wouldn't have wrote so many things in coded languages, in coded like metaphor. And I wouldn't have deleted so much stuff. Not because I can say I told you so. I know. I don't have to tell you so. I know so. But because I could go back to that as a reference and say, see, this is how the timeline is going to go down. And I tried to told y'all. Not as I told you so, but more of like, because we know, now you have confirmation is what I'm telling you is the truth. I wish I had more faith in myself back then. I forgive myself. I was going through a lot. And it wasn't a lot of people who I thought would have faith in me that did have faith in me at that time. So I forgive me. But that's one of the many things that I was hoping didn't happen, but did. So this is not one of those, you should be afraid. Nah, you should not be afraid. Don't live like that. But I will say, be comfortable, live your best life, live in the now and the present. Being afraid of tomorrow is not a good way to live. Unless you're trying to run for office so that you can in some way impact the changes that need to happen in this country and around the world, what are you personally going to do? That's the big thing. What are you personally going to do? You want to, don't be so hard on yourself. I will tell you that right here, right now. If you've not gotten to a space where you can enact change, I wouldn't give myself a hard time if I was y'all. I would learn as much as I can, stock as much as I can. When I say stock, I mean stock. Get you some water. And I finally figured out the word I was reaching for that other day when I was talking about the windows, y'all. Tint your windows in your home. Like you would do a car. Tint the windows. Blackout curtains before they run out. You don't need that. Umbrellas not for the rain, but for shade. Before these fools decide they want to blot out the sun, because they don't know what to do. that's weirdly part of the the chances that humans are going to be foolish enough to do that. And I'm just like, can y'all find something else? But at the same time, I'm not getting involved in that. I done told y'all already at the beginning of this conversation. Godzilla could come out of the Mississippi right now, and I'm going to get a drink and watch my sci-fi shows. I'm not getting involved in all that. Unless my clients, my students, my kids, my loved ones are impacted in a way that I can help, I'm not getting involved in that. Because I thought to myself, y'all, what if some of these people is right? Now, even the people who were misleading in a lot of the old texts, a lot of them agreed on a lot of stuff that was going to go down right about this time. And I'm just like, well, what if that dude is coming? And when I say that dude, I ain't going to say it out loud. What if that dude is coming? That's going to be like the worst thing since Adolf. I'm not. Get somebody else to do it. I'm not going to do it. I've been through enough in this life. Not it. Somebody else can take that, and I'd be perfectly fine with them taking that role if that is a thing that is real. And this is not from a place of fear. This is from a place of, nah, I'm good. I don't need to be the hero. I'm like, regular human beings have been giving me what for my entire life. And although I am better equipped now than I've ever been to fight, with this in my spirit, I don't want to fight no more. I'm serious. I will fight if I have to, but only if I have to. Everybody else can handle everything else. That's why I'm at. So I say being an observer is starting to look like a good deal. I'm just chit-chatting right now. I'm not trying to teach y'all nothing. I'm just chit-chatting and advising you that even if you don't post it no matter, which I still advise you to post it somewhere, even if it's private, because your family could eventually access that, right? You put it on, set it to private, and then you can, and on YouTube, you can upload videos as long as you want them to be. I think about 1 or 2 hours, something like that. But then there's some meditative sounds that I've seen. There's 4 and 5 and 6 hours. So, now that might take a long time to upload, but still, you left a piece of you behind that is an accurate depiction of who you are. A lot of the people whose writings we found, for example, to place in history books or to teach about in history classes, is because they wrote. They didn't have video vlogs back then, but they wrote. And we found ancient writings because somebody decided to sit down somewhere and write something. And right now, what is the most popular form of communication? This here. You don't necessarily have to be doing this so you can be famous or gain a following right now. You can do this as an act of love, but as an act of a historian right now. Be your own historian and tell your stories. You don't have to use this, just putting it out there, to be a mouthpiece, to argue against somebody. You might say, well, some of the people who are doing these arguments back and forth are doing a service of justice. You're right, some people are. Like, there's not a time that I don't see Jon Stewart's videos or happen to scroll by something that's talking about Jon Stewart, for example. I think he's one of the wisest men that do the job of commentary. Him and Dave Chappelle, I've talked about this. Him and Dave Chappelle are 2 of the wisest people that do commentary about our society. There's a few others, but you understand what I'm saying? If that exists and they do it from a place of levity, not a place of I want to hurt you or hurt or harm someone. Sometimes it's about understanding or trying to attempt to understand. And then, you know what the most beautiful part about those types of commentary on our society? They do try to take in account of both sides of the argument and figure out where the middle ground is, which I think is missing in a lot of today's commentary, where people are just biting each other just to bite each other. Because I think there's a lot of wound in there, but that's just my personal assessment. And nobody's getting anywhere because they're just spinning in circles. Yeah, it is very clear. This will, like, I'll take a firm stance on something real quick. It is very clear that drag queens reading somebody's books is not as dangerous or dangerous at all as someone harming them with a gun. But in today's society, in which we're very close to watering our crops with Mountain Dew, that makes sense. And in a society run like that, philosophers have very little to do. That's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, hope this has been entertaining. Y'all are loved.